Ronald Reagan, Stay the Course.
Documentary by Ali Friedman, Lauren Bozen, Glenn West, and Ben Levy.
President of the United States, Ronald Reagan was born on February 6, 1911 in Tampico, Illinois. Reagan left his small town to attend Eureka College where he majored in economics and sociology. Reagan soon found work as a radio sports announcer and became famous in the Midwest. In 1937, Reagan moved to California to cover a Chicago Cubs training season. While he was there, he did a screen test for Warner Brothers, who signed him to a 7-year contract. Reagan went on to make 52 films, including King's Row and Love is in the Air. In October of 1964, Reagan gave a speech for Republican presidential candidate Barry Goldwater, preaching that government restrictions and taxations were limiting individual freedoms. The extremely influential speech raised $1 million for the campaign and put Reagan as a figurehead for the Republican Party.
You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.
In 1964, Ronald Reagan became the governor of California for 2 terms. Reagan had bipartisan support for his welfare reform and reduced property taxes. This set him up for a sweeping win in 1980. Early on in his presidency, Reagan was shot less than an inch from his heart. His injury made the public sympathize with him, and he won the approval of several economic programs. Reagan left office in 1989 with the highest approval rating since FDR and died on June 5, 2004. Reagan's domestic policy was simple: balance the budget and have tax cuts. He implemented a supply-side economic theory called the trickle-down theory. It proposed that if you give tax cuts and invest in businesses for the wealthy, then the benefits will trickle down to the poor. Because of this, he drastically cut funds from non-military programs such as Medicaid and food stamps. Right after his assassination attempt, Reagan passed the Economic Recovery Tax Act of 1981, which decreased the income tax of the wealthy by 30% and reduced the budget by $41 billion. However, with discretionary and defense spending entrenched in this bill, balancing the budget was impossible, and the recession of 1981 began. Additionally, the Federal Reserve set extremely high interest rates in order to curb inflation, which inevitably hurt the middle and lower class. Although he was highly criticized during the recession, the inflation rate soon stabilized. Interest rates lowered, creating an economic boom that lasted till the end of his presidency. Another way the president was able to get the country out of recession was through the passage of TEFRA, the Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act, which increased taxes by cutting tax loopholes for the rich, counteracting the deficit. In Reagan's second term, he successfully passed the Tax Reform Act of 1986, which simplified the tax income code to 4 brackets. This let 6 million poor people not have to pay income taxes, and it also led to large income tax cuts.
Only a constitutional amendment will do the job. We've tried the carrot, and it failed. With the stick of a balanced budget amendment, we can stop government squandering, overtaxing ways, and save our economy.
In the beginning of his presidency, Mr. Reagan escalated the Cold War. He ordered a massive buildup of the U.S. Armed Forces because he believed in the policy of peace through strength. Towards the end of his presidency, Reagan relaxed against the Soviet Union because Gorbachev, who was trying to make more liberal changes, was elected chairman of the USSR. Reagan then had the first major military operation since Vietnam. This was called Operation Urgent Fury. Feeling threatened by the Communist Party set up in Grenada, a small Caribbean island, U.S. forces invaded and fought for several days, which resulted in an American victory. In 1986, during Reagan's second term, the Iran-Contra affair shook the whole administration. In the scandal, the U.S. was found to be using proceeds from arms sales to Iran in order to fund the Contras in Nicaragua. Reagan professed ignorance to the plot's existence, but he did say that he supported the initial sales to Iran in exchange for hostages. The investigation committee ended up finding that Reagan did not know about it. Even though they came to this conclusion, Reagan's popularity plummeted. Congress even said if the president didn't know what his security advisors were doing, he should have. Ultimately, Reagan's foreign policy was full of anti-communist movements.
Overall, Reagan revolutionized the United States. With his economic policies, he increased the total debt to $2.6 trillion. Many people say that he single-handedly found a peaceful solution to the Cold War, which ended only 2 years later after his presidency. He also cut the marginal income tax by 40%. Reagan demonstrated a practicality that blunted liberal opposition to his environmental and civil rights policies, but also raised questions on the right. However, he's still regarded today as one of the best presidents that have ever lived and has ever served the United States.